Hey guys, finally had time to get the Toyota back in for a minute. I was actually gonna check the numbers on the computer, see if I could get one at a local yard somewhere real quick, but now today it's been running around for 2 days and pulled it back in. Aaron was driving it around and it comes back, we got 10 volts on the wire that I wasn't able to get more than a volt on before, and I had to wiggle that around in there a little bit just to get the 10 volts. You'll see if I just move out a little bit, the voltage isn't, well, now I think I'm actually plugged into it, but I mean, you see it just moving the connector, it's dropping. It was hard to even get over, I think 2 volts last time I looked at it, so yeah, it's going to be good. I'm still going to get them numbers because it doesn't mean this thing isn't going out without a signal coming back with one when it hits a bump internally. But, you know, every time you think you get one direction on this car, like last time it sent me back over to ECT wiring, I found out, you know, bare wires rubbing up against the block. Now on this side it's saying the circuit's open, and it did take, I had to pull the weather pack out of there and go in there good, and then I got up to 10 volts, so that'll at least give me something good to ohm the wire out. I mean, I imagine before I was only getting a volt, even going from the tip of the terminal, just touching it. Kind of hard to do with one hand, but which one's the yellow? See, 0.2 from the tip. Wiggle it around a little bit, it still doesn't go up anywhere near 12. Well, 5, and see, this is what I'm doing with it. I'm really moving it around in there. So, and here's bending the wire. It does some, but that tip's moving around in there too. I'm not sure. Either way, I'm going to have to cut the end of that off, put a pigtail on it, and see if I'm getting closer to battery voltage out of it, because they're still losing 2. It could be very well be shorted, and with the other wire going into here, I'm going to pull an ohms test on both. I mean, it deserves a little bit more looking into. Last time I didn't like what I seen just leaving the ECM, but there wasn't a good way of doing it unplugged, so I'm going to just pull some Pyres grounds, see what we could get this beast back running, because they have a juke too. It's spewing oil and VVT issues. I mean, try to get this one back on the road so they could use it, deliver newspapers and get to work, and then, you know, fix their mom's other car. But all right, guys, I'll be back, let you know what I find out. But, you know, sometimes you get surprised. I came up here with the intentions of getting them numbers. I'm still going to be getting them, but, you know, it always pays to double check, even though, because every time I check this car, something seems different. So basic, you know, just Pyres and grounds all over the thing first. Wasn't suspecting that at first, but, you know. Okay, guys, next check I came to, I just cut the pigtail off of that because I'm going to, after seeing that, regardless, replace it. Just grabbing onto I should have 12 volts on that wire. Still getting the 1003. That was the best I could get, wiggling it in there, back probing it. What I did, I put into the battery voltage, just to double check, I put a T-pin into the coil, the battery. I'm getting 12.65, so somewhere on this circuit, maybe it is a short. I'd much rather deal with an external short in the wires, but we're losing a little over 2.5 volts on the way back to the computer. Should be coming on this wire, because no matter what, I'm going to battery ground there. I should be pulling a full 12 there. This could be shorting to this wire or any ground and losing 2. Somebody's taking 2 volts. And we just got to find who. Maybe it's coming out of the computer, maybe it's not, but, you know, hope's still alive a little bit. I guarantee you when I get under, I'm getting the numbers off of that ECM though. All right, going to the computer negative, which would be how it's controlling the circuit. I have even a little bit less than I was getting compared to what's supposed to be 12 in the battery ground, using the ground and the positive from the ECM for the oil control valve. I'm getting slightly less, which, I mean, gives me some hope that, like, as I'm shaking the wire a little bit, it's moving a little bit, but really like making being able to move something like that and see them numbers jump a little bit. But on that, I don't think I'm going to luck out, at least not outside of the car. I'm the whole way back, and I can't get them numbers to change by, you know, really jumping on the harness there. So, and that oil control valve, that is the only circuit coming out of them two. I believe it was OC positive and OC negative on the diagram. But there's nothing else on there, and wires don't share ground with anything. They're both provided by the PCM. But whenever I disconnect, I'm going to just pull a, you know, resistance one end of the wire to the other, maybe shake it under there, connect a little bit, but definitely don't like that. But whenever I'm at a point like this, what makes it real easy is I can just switch over. I'm going to keep the leads right where they're at. I'm going to just hook up the U-scope, see if there's any kind of control at all. You know, if it's... Alright guys, I'm hooked up still to the same two wires. And what I was doing, I was hooked up the U-scope. And if I move to have a singular event, just get one waveform. Whenever I delete the circuit code, I'll hit yes. I didn't get nothing. Alright guys, a little more kicking around. I'm still connected with them two wires. Using the U-scope. Now when I use a single trigger, and then I actually cleared the P0010 erase. That's how quick. The U-scope didn't run out of screen yet. That's how quick the computer's shutting that circuit down. But we could see it was giving it battery voltage. And it was pulling at the minimum, it was pulling it almost to ground. So it should give me a little bit more hope on the ground side of that circuit, but it might be seeing that that's not a square wave like it was showing before. I believe what's supposed to be there. But you could see, even if you put it on auto trigger, and then now what I'll do is clear the code again. Then that's how quick. That's how fast it's pulling it, shutting it back off. It doesn't like what it's seeing, it's shutting that circuit off. So maybe it just doesn't like seeing my scope hooked up to both ends. So the only thing I could think of next is I'm going to test the oil control valve again, just make sure it's not open. If it's not open, maybe pull it out of the block and see if it can move it outside. I'm not sure. Still going to test these wires. Seems a confusing one. Is that computer shutting off because it's bad, or is that computer shutting off because something we don't know? But at least we know it could get battery voltage to that oil control valve. All right, guys, moving along. We're going to find this. All right, what I did now is I'm just zooming out the oil control valve solenoid, and it's 9.3 ohm. Now these are pretty high ohm. I'm thinking that's going to end up being pretty good. I just used the grabbers and grabbed each terminal. It's anymore. If you find decent ones, I got these off when I ordered that HS512 oscilloscope. If you find good grabbers like this, I'll make a good contact so you could get a steady reading. Some of the ones you get on like AliExpress stuff, that the spring isn't strong enough. The spring actually is grabbing the tab, plus I push it forward a little bit and the plastic goes over the tab, so it's not giving it any chance to touch each other. Alligator clips, once you get in there, I mean, you could get them in there. That's my go-to, but I figured I had these in my little side box, so what the hell, give it a shot. I like it. All right, guys. Now, I'm going to look at spec up, and then we're going to just flat out ohm these wires out going to the computer. And then we're going to check the powers and the grounds on the computer and make sure it got something good. But it sure is, it's not like in something it sees, and the only code it's calling is this 2-wire circuit's open or shorted. So, I mean, we're hoping for an open or short in the wire, but I think we're going to find a short in the computer somehow. All right, guys, I'll be back next step setup. All right, I know somebody's going to say check it with a different ground, because I just thought of that, so I know, you know, like mine's and everything, but I'm going to the positive, and then I'm just got clamped on to the valve cover, and now I'm going to just erase the codes again, and actually not yet. Okay. Now we're going to hit the button. Nothing at all. Code's back instantly. I mean, that quick it's shutting it down even with a good ground. I was going to say if we seen the positive at least come back to it, complete the circuit, that would, you know, be able to suspect a negative. But as it is, we're going to just own them both. All right, guys, I was just thinking that as I was putting my test light away, and I figured why not. So, I mean, that's what we're here for, experimenting. This is the hose that was off, the AC. Whenever I put the O2 sensor in, I rehooked it back up. But all that water was on the floor was coming from this, and the computer lives right here. There's the hose right there where I'm touching with the light. There's where the computer bolts onto. Here's the back of the computer. You could see where the water was just blowing all over it. Could even be coming down the windshield from here. Who knows? These are fluke leads, but it doesn't matter. Every time before you start, especially checking resistance, you always want to make sure 0 ohms. Make sure, I mean, sometimes these are the flexible back probes. Sometimes they come dislodged in there, and it's basically, it's like a T-pin without the upper part. But always make sure your meter's working good, and whenever you're doing voltage, always, you know, check it on the battery before you start actually recording measurements that are going to mean something when you look something up. And here the black and the yellow, the black and yellow and the yellow are the two we're after. That's what goes out to the oil control valve. But I know it's one of the, it'd be easier getting it with an angled tip. But every time you change your tip, even though you check the meter once, if you change a tip, don't make a mistake in not checking that tip too, because a lot of times these break, they get worn, they get bent. Then you zeroed your meter out, but then you switch the tip and it already has some resistance in it. It'll get you. All right, what I'm looking at is the black and yellow wire that goes to the oil control valve. I got it going to the earth ground of the meter, then the positive going over. We're going to that same wire, back probed into the ECM. Well, the ECM connector with the ECM unplugged. .2, I think up to around 0.5 you're all right. But whenever I do have something on there like that, and you're actually getting a reading, I like moving the harness, moving it every which way you can, bend it every which way this motor. Pretend the motor got bad engine mounts and it's going over speed bumps. I mean, what's that harness do? And I mean, I can't get it to budge at all. It's got to be doing something. See if I can keep it on. There's not much wire that comes out inside the car, but still. If you can see. Not very good view no matter what you do holding the phone there. Yeah, that's a good one. Let's put my voltmeter in the door. Now I'm going to just move the harness down here, see if we get any big. And I wouldn't say that and shorten that, but now we're going to move on to the yellow one and do the same thing. Alright, same setup. I switched to the yellow wire. And I moved to the yellow wire inside also. Moving the harness around again. Oh, wait a minute. I went one too far. I was going to say 0. That's pretty damn good. Yeah, all right. Now I'm moving the wire around. And that was right in here. It went from 0.2 to 0.1, but I mean, it's some drifts normal. What you're going to see is there's something you could coordinate, like when you bend the wire one certain way, does that number move? And right now, the whole way out to the tip, I mean, even playing with the tip like that, we're not getting nothing. Go back into the car. Trying to put my meter in the same place in the door. I'm going to just move the harness around. And so that would be me moving that. If it does move a tiny bit, we're looking for something bigger. Something to make this computer panic. I just don't want to. Alright guys, I'd say them wires are good. What I'm going to do is see if I can pull a load on the power and grounds. Not sure what I should use there. I mean, I could pull with a test light. I could pull with a, you know, a little bit bigger draw. I'm not sure about the headlight. I do have a headlight, but I don't think you want to pull on even without the computer. I mean, it's not going to hurt none. You're going to just be yanking out power from the battery to that terminal to make sure this thing got a good power and a good ground. All right, let me think about that for a minute, and I'll be back with something to plug in, see what kind of direction. But right now, with them wires looking that good, and they go from here to there. I mean, we're not load testing them. This is just an ohms test, but you know, it's not looking too good for that computer. All right, guys, Aaron's telling me it's time to eat, so I'm gonna mosey down the house and have some supper. So I was just checking voltage. I got the computer out and just the key on and checking, making sure I'm getting voltage down here. And then I'll move my ground and make sure I'm getting ground, mark the wires. Then I'm going to load test them a little bit to the battery, see what, you know, maybe a couple amps. I'm not going to go crazy with a headlight. You're a couple amps or the Load Pro. I mean, that's a pretty decent tool, but it's a little bit involved to get a reading, and it doesn't put a really heavy load on it, but I'm sure it has its purposes. I don't know if tomorrow's going to be one of them, but either that or we'll just pull like 2-3 amps with a light bulb. All right, we were looking around and there's nothing local. That's why I was going to think about opening up the lid of that one, see if it could be repaired if it has to be. I mean, it was nice when Radio Shack was there. Now we don't have nothing, so we shall see. All right, guys, adios. Well, guys, I think the Toyota ECM questions answered. Wow. Is that a resistor? No, it's probably a transistor itself. I don't know, but it's not good, guys. Definitely not good. Nope, still definitely want to test all the powers and grounds like I was going to plan on doing, but I just couldn't resist. Whenever I seen they weren't security screws, and this thing, it lives inside, so it probably didn't have any of the weatherproof insulation on it, but boy, that really stands out. Alrighty, well, there it ends. Well, one journey ends and a new one's about to begin. Alright guys, thanks for sticking with me. Adios.